How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, November 14th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Francisco Lindor. The elite shortstop for the New York Mets is now 28, and my intention with this episode is, of course, to point out the accolades, the achievements, and all the accomplishments, as well as the statistics that Francisco Lindor has been able to record in his amazing tenure in the MLB, considering how tough it is to make it to the MLB, how tough it is to make it to the majors, and how tough it is to be consistently recognized as one of the best players in your position on offense and defense, especially at the shortstop position. I think it's something worthy to be recognized. He deserves to be recognized as one of the elite baseball players that happens to be playing right now. And even though he had one spotty season with the New York Mets, I don't think that should really change anything. And of course, playing in a new league with new systems is, of course, tough for everyone. But I imagine that next year, everyone will be very aware of who Francisco Lindor is. So, just for a little bit of background, if you're unfamiliar with Francisco Lindor, of course, on defense, he is an amazing defender, but on offense, he's one of the better switch hitters in the MLB, which is why I kind of like watching him play. Of course, he's one of those let the kids play era type of baseball players where, of course, he will talk a good amount of smack, but of course, he can back it up. So, of course, I'm always a good fan of smack talk if you can back it up, and Lindor can back it up. But giving a little bit of background, he is originally from Puerto Rico. He would eventually go on to attend Montverde Academy when he moved to the United States, and he would go on to eventually sign as an international free agent. And he would eventually find his way up to the major leagues when he got promoted through the Cleveland Indians. The Cleveland Indians officially called him up as a 21-year-old in 2015. In 2015, Francisco Lindor would go on to play 99 games in a season in which the Cleveland Indians would finish with an 81-80 record. They would finish with the third best record in the American League Central. In the 99 games he played, he finished with 122 hits, 23 more hits than games played. He had 50 runs on the season, which is impressive in a 99-game span. He had 22 doubles, 4 triples, which is tied for his career high. He had 12 home runs, 51 RBIs. He would finish his season with a .313 batting average, a .353 on-base percentage, a .482 slugging percentage, adding up to an .835 OPS. He would go on to lead the American League in sacrifice hits for the only time in his career. And in the American League Rookie of the Year voting, he would finish second to Carlos Correa of the Houston Astros because that's how close it was. Just to give a sense of how good Francisco Lindor was, he was highly touted from the moment he came into the league. But following his first season, in which the Indians completely missed the playoffs, this would lead to his second season in Cleveland, and in his age 22 season in 2016. In his very first full season with the Cleveland Indians, he was named an All-Star. He would go on to play 158 games in a season in which the Indians would win the American League Central for the very first time since 2007. So that would, of course, end an 8-year drought in which they had not won the division. They've made the playoffs since then, but it's the first time they've won the division in a bit. They had won 13 more games that season than they had won the prior year. In the 158 games he played, Lindor finished with 182 hits, the second most hits he's ever registered in an MLB season to date. And of course, that would still be 24 more hits than games played on the year. He had 99 runs on the year, which is, of course, 49 more runs, almost doubling what he had done his very first year. He would go on to finish with 30 doubles on the year. The first time he eclipsed the 30 number, he finished with 15 home runs and 78 RBIs. He had 19 stolen bases. He would finish with a 301 batting average. This will be the very first full season he had in which he had a batting average over 300. And ever since that season, he actually has not posted a season in which his batting average has been at least 300. His OPS would add up to 794, which was about 4% lower than it was his rookie season. He would go on to lead the American League in sacrifice flies for the only time in his career as he had 15. In addition to being named an All-Star for the very first time in 2016, as a 22-year-old nonetheless, he would go on to be named a Gold Glove winner as well, meaning he was the best defensive player in his position in his entire league in just his second year of playing there. And he would go on to finish 9th in MVP voting in a season where Mike Trout would end up taking the hardware home. Once the Cleveland Indians made the playoffs, they would end up sweeping the Red Sox in the first round. In the second round, they would end up beating the Blue Jays in 5. And this is when the Blue Jays were surging with Josh Donaldson and Jose Bautista. They would end up losing in the World Series to the Chicago Cubs after I believe they had a 3-1 series lead over the Cubs at one point. This is also the year where Terry Francona won the Manager of the Year. This was the very closest that Francisco Lindor has gotten to the championship as of this date. But of course, following 2016, many people were very aware of who Francisco Lindor was. Going into his third season in the MLB, in his age 23 season in 2017, he will go on to play 159 games in a season in which the Cleveland Indians would win the American League Central for the second year in a row. They won it with a 102-60 record. They won 8 more games than they had won the previous season. This was the season where Corey Kluber won the Cy Young, and in this season, Francisco Lindor was named an All-Star for the second time in his first 3 years in the league. He would go on to lead the American League in plate appearances and at-bats as well. He would go on to finish with 178 hits in 159 games. The third straight season, he had more hits than games played. He had 19 more hits than games played this particular season. He finished with 99 runs for the second consecutive year. It's very tough to score even like 80 runs in a season, but to score 99. He had 44 doubles that year, which to this date is the most doubles he's ever posted in a year. He finished with 4 triples, which is tied with his rookie season for the most triples he's ever posted. He finished with 33 home runs, the first time he's even hit more than 20 in his career, and the first time he topped 30. He would finish with 89 RBIs, the first time he topped the 80 RBI threshold. He would finish with 15 stolen bases on the year. Third time in a year he had double-digit stolen bases. He finished with a 273 batting average, which was about 28 points lower than what it was the previous season. He would finish with a 337 OBP, and for the first time he finished with a slugging percentage over 500. His 842 OPS was at that point a career high, and he would go on to not only be named an All-Star for this year, but he would be named a Silver Slugger, which means that he was the best hitter at his position in the American League for the entire year. And this year, he would go on to finish 5th in American League MVP voting as Jose Altuve ended up winning it. So in his first 3 seasons in the league, he would go on to have won the American League Central twice. He will have already won a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger. And this was by the time he turned 24, meaning that he's established himself once as the best hitter, and he's established himself once as the best defensive shortstop in the entire American League. But of course, following his 2017 regular season, the Indians would end up losing in the very first round of the playoffs to the Yankees. They lost in 5, and then 2017 would be the year in which the Astros ended up beating the Dodgers anyway. But following that 2017 season. This would lead into Lindor's fourth season with the Indians. In his age 24 season in 2018, he would be named an All-Star for the third year in a row as he played 158 games in a season where the Cleveland Indians finished with a 91-71 record, winning the American League Central for the third year in a row. They actually have not won the American League Central since 2018. But in this 2018 season, he will go on to lead the American League in plate appearances and at-bats for the second year in a row. He would finish with 183 hits in those 158 games, which to this day is the most hits that he's ever posted in a season. This would be the fourth season in a row since he started, which he had more hits than games played in the league. He would finish with 129 runs, the first time he scored at least 100 in his MLB career, and it's the only time in his MLB career to date that he's led an entire league in runs. He would finish with 42 doubles on the season, the second time that he's crossed the 40 double threshold, the third time that he's hit at least 30. He finished with 38 home runs, which to this day is and 92 RBIs. His 38 home runs and 92 RBIs are the most RBIs he's ever hit in a season. His 25 stolen bases in 2018 were also the most stolen bases he's ever put together in a season to date. He finished with a 277 batting average, a 352 on base percentage, a 519 slugging percentage, which to this day is the highest slugging percentage he's ever had. His 871 OPS is also his career high at this very moment. And at the end, he, in addition to being named an All-Star for the third time in his first 4 seasons in the MLB, his first 3 seasons as a full-time starter, he would go on to be named he was given the Silver Slugger Award at the shortstop position for the second year in a row. And to this date, he has not won one since, but right now he has 2 Silver Sluggers to his name. Following the 2018 regular season, the Indians would end up losing in the American League Division Series. They ended up getting swept by the Astros, as the Red Sox ended up being the team that won the World Series that year. Following 2018, Francisco Lindor would return to Cleveland for what would be his 5th season there, and in his 4th full season as the starting shortstop for the Cleveland Indians, he would play 143 games in a season in which the Indians finished with a 93-69 record. They finished with the second best record in the American League Central, and they missed the playoffs. However, in that season, Francisco Lindor was named an All-Star for the 4th year in a row, as he had 170 hits in those 143 games, his 5th season in a row in which he had more hits than games played. He had 101 runs on the season, the 4th time he's had at least 99, and that would be the second time he's crossed the 100-run threshold. He finished with 40 doubles on the season, the 3rd season in a row he's hit at least 40 doubles in a season, and he has not hit 40 doubles in a season since 2019. And that would be the 4th season he's hit at least 30. He would finish with 32 home runs and 74 RBIs. That would be the 3rd season in a row that he hit at least 30 home runs, and he still has yet to hit 30 home runs in a season since then. He would finish with 22 stolen bases. That is the second time in the most recent time he's finished with at least 20 stolen bases. He would finish with a 284 batting average and an 854 OPS, as he finished with a 335 on-base percentage and a 518 slugging. In addition to being named an All-Star for the 4th time in his career, he would be given a Golden Glove, an award he hadn't been given since the first year he had been a starter in Cleveland in 2016. So by the end of 2019, by the end of his first 5 seasons in Cleveland, by the quarantine season, he was a player that was a 4-time perennial All-Star, a consistent All-Star candidate, and he was recognized for being the best offensive shortstop and the best defensive shortstop more than one time, proving that his excellence on both ends is most definitely not a fluke. Following the 2019 season, he would go on to compete in all 60 games of the 60-game season. So in 2020, of course, 2019 impacted the season. So the COVID impacted the 2019 season to the extent where it had to shorten a 162-game season to 60 games. And, of course, it would expand the playoffs as a result, and the Indians just happened to be a team that happened to make the playoffs as a result of that. But before I get into that, in the 60 games that Lindor played in the season where they didn't even name all-stars, he would finish with 61 hits in those 60 games, continuing his streak of having more hits than games played, extending it to 6. He had 30 runs in the 60 games as he led the American League in plate appearances in his final year in Cleveland. He would go on to finish with 13 doubles, 8 home runs, 27 RBIs, as he would finish with a 258 batting average and a 750 OPS for what would essentially be known as a lost season for a lot of players, but he would still go on to have a pretty solid season in what would be his last season in Cleveland. And once the Indians made the playoffs, they would end up losing in the wild card round 2-0 to the New York Yankees. And just for reference, just for context, this is the year that Shane Bieber won he won the Triple Crown and was given the Cy Young Award in the American League. And also Carlos Carrasco was given the Comeback Player of the Year while on the same team. But following that 2020 early exit by the New York Yankees, Francisco Lindor was actually traded to the New York Mets. He and Carlos Carrasco traded to the Mets for Ahmed Rosario, Andres Jimenez, Josh Wolf, and Isaiah Green. However, from this trade, Francisco Lindor has had a little bit of a rough start when he got into the National League East, which already is a tough division. Not to mention that you have to deal with a whole new set of pitchers, being a switch hitter. But in Francisco Lindor's only season in New York so far, he has played 125 games in a season where the New York Mets would finish with a 77-85 record. They finished with the third best record in the National League East and missed the playoffs. In the season, Lindor would finish with 104 hits in the 125 games, which is the very first time in his MLB career that he's finished with less hits than games played. He had 73 runs on the season as he had 16 doubles. He had 20 home runs alongside his 63 RBIs. His 230 batting average would be a career low, and his 734 OPS would also be a career low for him. But of course, one season doesn't knock off his amazing greatness that he's been able to put forward when he was first getting started, when he finally had his legs under him in Cleveland. And I imagine that once he has it under him in New York, he'll be fine there as well. With that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 18 minutes of this piece. I want to also thank the Pro Baseball Reference website and, of course, the MLB and Wikipedia articles and sites and tabs that I needed in order to get these stats that I needed for this episode. And if you ever get a chance to watch Francisco Lindor, I most definitely would. Right now, he is wearing number 12 on the New York Mets. Almost said Yankees, but I caught myself. But yes, long story short, as a two-way hitter, Francisco Lindor is one of the best in the business. And considering how consistently he hits, at least how consistently he averages more hits than games, I would bet that Francisco Lindor is a player that's going to be here for a long time. Thanks for listening to this piece, and I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow once all of today's episodes are done. Until then, thanks for listening. I hope all is well, and peace out.